Hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. Kobe, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
This podcast is called Anime Ricochet. It is a podcast. I've said podcast too many times now.
You did say it quite a few times.
It's podcast. Oh, shit. It's called Anime Ricochet is the name of this audio art piece. And
audio art piece, I like it.
Yeah. So in this recording, we talk about sports anime. And in particular, we're going to be talking about Ping Pong the Animation for the third time
on this
podcast.
Yes,
but to
we
you
have.
guys, it'll be the first time, hopefully. Well, we actually put up the first recording, but we're going to redo it, so we'll take that down.
If you don't know, we had an amazing, absolutely fantastic recording with just such this deep insight and knowledgeable things that would have blown your freaking minds. And then my microphone wasn't recording properly, so I screwed everything up. So I apologize that the world was robbed of such epic talkness, is, I believe, the scientific term for it.
There we go. That's what they used to call it. That's what our ancestors called it.
The talkie talks.
The talkie talks, yeah.
And the wordy words.
Yes. So Ping Pong the Animation is an anime about, you guessed it, ping pong. Yay.
Oh, yay.
It's one of my favorite animes of all time. Favorite sports anime of all time. What about you, Kobe? Where does this sit in your all-time?
All-time favorite? I would definitely say it's in top 5 favorites. Probably top 3, I would say. I have a lot of favorite animes, but this one is definitely up there for favorite sports anime. Do you like ping pong? Do you ever play ping pong?
Yeah, I played ping pong in your house, actually. You had a ping pong table in the garage. Very cool bachelor pad.
Yeah, I was pretty rad.
Yeah.
I wasn't at all.
All the bitches love ping pong tables.
They do not. That's what I learned. I learned that I thought they would. Surprisingly, no one likes the ping pong table.
I guess I still have a lot to learn myself.
Yep.
About the ways of ping pong and how it relates to women. Yeah, it's my top 3 for sure. It's number 3 of my top 3. But it used to be, I think, number 5, and then every time I watched it, I always got bumped up more and more just because of how good it is. Just like it's a quality anime, and we're gonna be discussing everything about it today, and we're going full on spoilers on here, so you should go ahead and watch it. But if you don't give a shit, then feel free to keep listening to how awesome this anime is from us. But really, you should watch it.
You should watch it. It's an anime where you definitely learn something new every single time that you watch it. I think I watched it for the 3rd time before this podcast, and I think just like I picked up on some stuff that I didn't pick up with my first 2 times, and it just blew my mind how an anime could really keep teaching me things just no matter how many times I watch it.
Yeah, that's one of its strengths, I would say, is it's the subtlety of it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of its all-time greatest strengths is the characters of the show. So the anime follows 5 characters. There's basically 2 main characters in the show, but there's 5 main-ish characters. And
they're all great.
Yeah, they're all amazing. Their arcs are amazing. So let's just go through them one by one. So what we have first is we have Smile, aka, his name is Skimoto, and then it's AKA. You go AKA after the real name, right, Kobe?
Right, I think that's how that works.
Yeah, so his AKA is Smile, and his thing is that he never smiles. And he's kind of a nerdy guy, kind of withdrawn, but as the series goes on, he kind of develops more as a character. Ain't that right? Ain't that right, Kobe?
That is right. Oh yeah, that's Smile. That's kind of the basic of Smile. Then you have the other main character whose name is Peiko. He's kind of like a cocky, arrogant little shitbag to be quite blunt about it. Mm-hmm. He's kind of annoying at first. He thinks he's the best ever at ping pong. And of course, that's how the series starts out. So of course, the series is about him kind of learning that he's not the best around, and he has to find the true warrior within himself.
Yeah, and the whole anime really, the crux of it is the relationship between these 2 characters and their own personal development as they go through. These 2 characters, Smile and Peiko, are best friends.
But why is my question?
Yeah,
but
exactly. They never. Well, actually, there's a good reason why. There's a good reason why they reveal at the end, and we'll talk about that. Cool. So yeah, Smile is a very good player, and Peiko is also a really good player. He's supposed to be the best, but as we learn through their interactions and through the storytelling, is that Peiko used to be the best, and he kind of slipped, and Smile kind of surpassed him, and he's actually the better player.
But it sets up an interesting dynamic between the two characters, because even though Smile's a better player, it starts off by saying that Smile doesn't play his best against Peiko. Smile kind of lets Peiko win.
Yeah, he holds back against him, which is one of the clues that Smile is actually better than Peiko, because Peiko doesn't even know that he's holding it back against him. But anyways, we'll get more into that. The other character is Kong, and he's from China, and his story is that he got exiled from his country for being shitty at ping pong.
Banished.
Well,
that's what can happen if you do something bad. You're banned from your country forever.
Yeah, that's the mystery. The real mystery in this anime is what are Chinese laws that dictate that you can. I need to know. Yeah. Which actually maybe we should have looked it up, because we've been asking this for a long time. Is that plausible to get kicked out of your country for being bad at ping pong?
Oh, I guess I don't know. We have been complaining about that a lot, but I don't think any of us we haven't Googled that.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's more fun to just bullshit about the reasons
and complain about it. Absolutely, or we'll hire an intern to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Kong is also a very good ping pong player, but he sees his banishment from his country and his placement in Japan as like a curse, as like a huge burden. And throughout the anime, he's sort of bitter about it, but he has his own development throughout the show. And he's a very interesting character. He's my favorite character. And
Kong is your favorite character. Interesting.
Yeah. We'll talk more about that later. Okay. And then what's another character?
The final who rounds out the four. It's kind of weird how many main characters are. There's four main characters, and then there's like a fifth one who's like right on the verge of main character now. But the fourth main character is a guy named Kazuma. And he is a player from this elite ping pong academy, named, what's the name of his school? Kaio Academy.
Kaio Academy.
And it's an academy just dedicated specifically only to ping pong. It's basically like a cult in a lot of different ways, because all these people shave their heads. Yes. They focus 24/7 on just ping pong. No matter what, it's ping pong. So Kazuma is the side of the story that's just ping pong, dedication, responsibility, I must win type viewpoint of these main ones.
Yeah, and he's a very strong ping pong player. He's like a beast. And then the fifth one that's kind of weird on the verge, his name is Sakuma. He also has a history with the two main characters, Peiko and Smile. He sort of grows up with them, but then he kind of takes off his own path, and he actually becomes a member of Kaio Academy, the same academy that Kazuma's on. And he becomes a good player in his own right. But still doesn't quite evolve to the same standard as the other characters, which is a point of conflict.
He has a tendency to headbutt people, which I think is Sakuma's biggest defining trait. He just walks up to someone, just like headbutts, and he's like, "Hello, Peiko."
That's how you know. That's how you know in an anime that they're headstrong. Holy crap, that makes sense.
Oh, that does actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
look at that, discovering new things. He's headstrong. Whoa.
Yeah, that's very on the nose. Except I didn't catch it till now, so maybe it's actually brilliant. It's like so obvious. They're like, yeah, whatever. They're not gonna notice this shit.
Or we're not very smart.
Yeah, that's probably.
We're pretty smart.
Can't be it.
So this anime kind of follows these four players, Smile, and five players: Smile, Peiko, Kazuma, Kong, and Sakuma, as they kind of grow up a little bit and compete in these like elite ping pong championship rounds to see and vie for who will be top dog, who will be the best ping pong player, who will, go on to become a famous ping pong player in the future.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing about these characters is that they each have their own motivation, they each have their own conflicts, and they wrap it all up. Like the pacing of this anime is really good to where the development and the arc of it is noticeable. But it happens at like a reasonable rate. Like there's no like switch. It's not like the character is this way one episode and the next one the next episode. Even though the anime is short, it still has an excellent ability to pace the character's development out between the episodes. And the arcs and the way these characters grow is like the most satisfying thing. But before we get there, let's talk about their ping pong styles, because I think their ping pong, the way they play ping pong, and it kind of, it's sort of indicative of their character in a way. And this is something that I think, Kobe, you did some research on,
Oh,
the
I
different
did.
styles of ping pong.
I did indeed. Hold on, I gotta find my notes. Yeah, I had a ping pong table growing up, right? So not growing up, I had it for a few years in college, and I liked ping pong. I thought ping pong's great, but I didn't think much to it when it comes to like grip and the way you hold your
Rubbers.
paddle and rubbers and all about that. So when this anime kind of throws you in and like introduces these characters to like how they hold the paddle and how they play, it's fascinating because I think ping pong does not get enough credit because it looks like from afar you can easily say, oh, it's just two people hitting the ball back and forth, but there's actually so much going into it, and that's what I look for in a good sports anime, is one that can really bring you into the world of the sport that it's representative of. And ping pong, you'll learn a lot about ping pong even if you've never played ping pong a day in your life, which is pretty neat if I do say so myself.
Yeah, ping pong is definitely not a sexy sport. I think that's its problem. It's just Asian guys with tiny paddles hitting a tiny ball. It
Hitting
just
a
looks
ball
like,
so fast that you can't even see it really on most good ping pong matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But it's such
ahead.
a sport that's such like a reflex. It's like, I would say more so than any sport that I can think of that comes to mind. It's one that you have no time to really think about anything. You just have to have expert like knowledge and timing of like all your moves, and if I hit the ball here, he's going to hit the ball back, which means I got to hit it this way, which means you have to think like 4 moves ahead when it comes to ping pong, which is it's a sport that I don't think gets enough credit.
Yeah, and I think it's actually officially the fastest racket sport in the world, which I think
wow.
I can only think of 3 racket sports. Like there's tennis, and then there's badminton, and then there's
racquetball,
ping pong. So I mean, racquetball, yeah, there we go. But yeah, I can totally believe that. I mean, just the force and speed at which the ball moves between each player is it's pretty intense. But anyways, so when these characters are introduced, they're given their name, and like there's a still on the screen, like it'll show Smile's face, and it'll show like a still, and it'll show like text on the screen, their name. But it also shows their ping pong style, like their grip and what kinds of rubbers they use.
Mm-hmm.
So with Smile, go ahead.
I was going to start with Peiko. No, go ahead. Start with Smile.
Yeah, all right. So Smile, his grip is it's a right shake hand grip with pips in rubber on both sides, and he's an attacking chopper. So when you're watching this anime and you just read that, you're like, "What the? I don't know what the hell that means."
It's like thanks for showing me words, anime. That I'm just like, okay,
grips,
I don't know what that is.
Grips and rubbers. It's all very sexual.
What? Grips and rubbers? How is grips and okay, rubbers, I'll give to you. How is grip sexual? Your mind goes to dirty places, sir.
I'm a dirty man. Anyways, so what does that mean, Kobe? Tell me, what the hell does that mean?
Okay, the shake hand grip is one, it's like the typical, like, I guess, European style of grip, which is such a European thing to do, where the head of the racket kind of faces up, and your hand looks like it's going to shake a person's hand, so it's just kind of wrapped around it.
Just a natural way of holding the racket. It's like your first instinct.
Yeah, your first instinct to grab it, which is how I hold that. That's how I hold the paddle. And is that how you hold the paddle? If you remember how you picked up a paddle?
Yeah, I never even considered there was another way before watching this anime. I thought it was just that way. Because I think of it as tennis. When I think of ping pong, I just think of tennis. So I was just like, this is how they do in tennis.
Smaller tennis for miniature people.
Yeah. I don't play tennis either, though. By the way, we don't play sports.
Oh, we play no sports.
We should have mentioned that in the beginning, but neither Kobe nor I play any sports, not even for like fun. Well, kind of for fun, but like not regularly.
We are aware of what sports are, but not much else.
Exactly.
And
that's the twist. Such a fun twist.
Our whole podcast about sports anime, because we like learning about sports, and especially when it's a viewpoint from a entirely different culture. When it's something like a Japanese anime, how they view the sport, and how it's something that like a Western culture will never consider before.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so please continue, Kobe.
Yeah. So the cool thing about the shake hand grip that Smile uses is that he can use both his forehand and his backhand pretty easily, which is different than the other players who don't use the shake hand grip. So the shake hand is one who's comfortable and can make fast decisions when deciding if I want this to be a forehand hit or if I want them to be a backhand grip. The downside of those is if if you're not quick enough to decide when the ball's coming at you, it's like, oh, I need to switch to my backhand, or I need to hit it forehand. If you're not quick enough, then that will hold you up, and that's the moment of weakness, and then that'll kill you in the game. So the shake hand grips really have to be ready to be able to analyze and just to be able to slip into forehand or backhand like really easily. So
what does a rubber mean? The pips in rubber on both sides. What is a pips in? Like, what is a pip? What is that?
If looking from like afar, like if you look at really professional paddles, from afar they don't look like anything. But if you go up like really close to the pips, you'll notice that they have like these just little like rubber tabs, really small rubber tabs, like sticking out usually from one side of the paddle. And what's cool about these is that before, like I think in the 1960s or so, that this like revolutionized the game of ping pong. Because before that, people were just you got a racket and you hit it back and forth between each other, right? Like that's all you needed to do. But with these pips, these small little rubber tabs on the paddle itself, it changed the game by introducing the concept of like spinning. The ball kind of rolls off the pips in certain ways that just like basically like magic, the way that
it's magic.
The pips can make the ball do in terms of spin and in terms of like top spin and underspin and all sorts of spinning techniques. So the pips are really separate ping pong into a really like top tier game in my opinion, because if you can get your angles down for how you hit the ball or in certain ways, like you can make the ball go anywhere you want on the court, going through like any arc or any angle or any spin, and it's pretty amazing. Those are pips.
Yeah, I was trying to. So this is kind of the hardest thing for me to sort of visualize, but basically once you just call it magic, that's pretty much where I stopped, because it's some kind of physics thing. It's like when the ball rolls off and it bounces off, it like the pips affect. It's
so weird. If you watch like really close ups, or if you watch people do it, it looks like they're chopping the ball like on top of it. It looks like they're hitting it on top, like barely at all. But it's making the ball go in like wacky directions. It's really cool if you want to like YouTube some really close up ping pong matches. It's amazing what the balls can do and what these pips can do. So like sometimes pips are on both sides. Sometimes pips are on just one side, and someone who wants to focus on more aggressive attacking will have pips on the front side for their forehand, and then a normal paddle on the backhand just to hit it normally.
So when it says pips in, what does that mean versus like pips out? Because that means pips in, the rubber is sort of like compressed, like the tabs are sort of indented, right? There's like little indents. That's the pips in style, right?
Yes. And so the pips out are just kind of longer, that allows, I think, more control over spin, I believe.
Okay, so when he has pips in rubber, that means, what does that mean? Does that mean he has less spin and he just sort of, what does that mean?
I think that means he has more control over the ball.
Okay. That makes sense, because pips out, you get more spin. I can kind of visualize that, but pips in, that means less spin, therefore more control.
It's crazy.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah. So that's that's what Smile is. He's the right shake hand grip, pips and rubber on both sides. And he's also a chopper, which in ping pong there's certain terms, like choppers are more defensive players than there are offensive players. It's really great because ping pong, you can really play it two ways, I would say, I think is pretty cool. You can either be like aggressive, and you can try to go for the win, or you're more defensive and you hope that your opponent will make a mistake first. So it's really what you want to hedge your bets on. Is like, can you be defensive enough so your opponent will make a mistake, or do you want to drive and totally rage and try to beat his defense? So I think that's an interesting strategy to play. And Smile at the beginning is definitely more of a chopper, especially against Peiko, who just kind of bounces back. He just lets whatever happen to Smile. He lets whatever happens in the game happen.
Yeah, and if you want to see like so first of all, chopping style, like I think the reason it's called chopping is because when you actually see a chopper, like in real life, they'll actually do a chopping motion with the paddle. So like instead of like kind of hitting it forward, they kind of hit it sort of like perpendicular to the ball, if that makes sense. And that kind of that motion kind of slows the ball down and forces the attacker to basically reset the attack all over again. Yeah. And if you want to see a really good chopper. His name is Ju Si Hyuk. Hyuk?
Yup.
I fucked up his name. He's a Korean dude, I'm pretty sure. It's JOOSAE-HUHYUK. I think he's like the most popular in this. He's the most popular chopper in the sport. He really like his games are really fun to watch. You can find them on YouTube and stuff.
I really want to be known as like, I want a title saying like, oh, I'm the most popular chopper in the sport. That's a cool title to have. Like,
Yeah,
when you
ain't no other choppers like me, baby, is what he says.
That's a great pickup line. I mean,
Yeah.
you could woo all the ladies.
Yeah, and so I feel like I don't think we have to go through every single player and their styles, but I feel like just this one example is kind of sort of indicative of how their playing style is reflective of their character. So he's a shake hand grip, which means he's adaptive. He's a quick thinker.
Mhm.
He knows when to use a forehand and backhand. He's a pips in rubber, and he's a chopper, which means that he's more defensive. He's more, I guess, passive, which he is in the show. But
that's not a complete, just total good wrap up of his character. I mean,
Exactly,
that defines Smile, which is great. How they could find a sport that really kind of can work in that regard. That you can have a certain style of play in a certain sport that just totally sums up the character, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. So yeah, that's
the shake hand grip. And just really quickly, the other main grip in the show is called like the reverse pen hold, and that's the one that Peiko uses. And it's really quick. It's like when it's more. Hold on.
it's like you're holding a pen,
Yeah, that's basically how you do it. Yeah,
which is weird to me.
it sounds so like, yeah. When I see people holding these rackets, I think it's just the most it's an odd thing. Like the thumb and the index finger hold on to the racket, and the other three fingers kind of curl around the back of the racket. And it's like that's what's known as like the traditional Chinese pen hold. But it's great if you want good forehand because it gives more movement to like how you flick your wrist. So you just kind of it's one that's not devoted to your backhand, but it's one that's more solely forehand. So you got to be quick to be a pen hold grip because you got to be able to like jump in front of the ball to hit it forehand and not because you don't have time to switch to backhand.
Yeah, so that's a style that Peiko adopts, and I think Kong also has it. So that's of Peiko especially. I think that's pretty indicative of his character because he's sort of brash, he's sort of foolhardy, and he's definitely an aggressive player. And he basically just attacks all the time, just like hit it really hard. That's what I'm good at. Just gonna hit it really hard every single time.
Yeah.
And that, again, that kind of sets up a foil to Smile, who is more of a defensive player. So yeah.
This show is just great for how it represents its characters, and because the show is really about these 4/5 characters interacting with each other and having their own kind of separate styles and different methods to ping pong, just kind of interacting and like bouncing off of each other in ways that's just like really organic, I guess. Because even that's Peiko and Smile, even at first, like you don't really know, like if you take a step back, you don't really know why these two are like friends because their personalities are like so different to each other. But the show does a great job of like peeling back the layers of like why these two really like need each other and really like are inspired by one another, which is good for ping pong.
Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, let's go back to just the characters themselves, and
Cool. So Kong is your favorite character?
Yes, and I want to talk more a little about just like the I guess the overall story and like the arc between all these characters before I get into that.
Oh yeah, cool.
Because in the very beginning, you are introduced to three characters right off the bat in the first episode. You got Smile, Peiko, who are the two main characters, and you also have Kong. And again, this anime is great because in the span of one episode, you kind of understand what each character is about and what their motivations are. So Smile, very shy, timid dude, great ping pong player. Peiko, kind of an arrogant, brash guy, also a great ping pong player, but not as good as Peiko. And then there's Kong, who's like from China. And so there's a great ping pong match at the end of this episode, and there's pretty much every ping pong match in the series basically tells you something about the character, about what's going on in their head. For example, in this one, Kong is basically he's up against Peiko, and Peiko is getting creamed. He's getting What do they call what?
Skunked.
Skunked. Yeah,
He's got skunked.
He skunked me.
He skunked me.
Which is weird. Quick side note. That's in the subtitle version. I think they also use that in the dub. Do you remember if they used that in the dub? I think they called it.
I think so. Yeah, I think it is. They use skunked both times. Because there's not another word for being totally destroyed, I guess.
Demolished.
He demolished me. And especially, I think it's like a legit term in sports for like, skunked means, you score 0 points.
Yeah, it's a sports thing. Sports terminology.
Sports. See, we know sports.
Yeah, sports. Yeah, and so during the match, not only is Peiko facing an opponent he's never faced before, because he's pretty much won every match till now. You also know a little bit more about Kong and his motivations. And his motivation is that he's pissed off that he was sent here. And his ticket home is basically to get good at is to basically make it to nationals. Is to be so good that he represents the country, and then he'll come back to China. And this is sort of a sort of brief glimpse into the character. We learned a little bit more about them, but it just his first episode alone, I think, is a great. It reflects well in the rest of the series, because the rest of the series is like this. It's great pacing. You get to know all the characters, all their motivations, and the ping pong matches serve a purpose other than just watching them play, as opposed to just watching them as opposed to us just watching to see who the better player is. We also get a peek into their mind, which is really important, because this anime is not really about ping pong. It's actually about the characters and their journey. And it's just
going
a great
on the
episode.
theme to discover, I guess, the hero, and finding, kind of what inspires you, and finding the hero within, and being, how would you describe the theme of this show?
Yeah, so we should mention that. So in the very first shot is not anything to do with ping pong or any character.
Which just blows my mind, because when I was first started watching this anime, and all of a sudden it begins with like a door opening and like a robot appearing, saying like the hero emerges, the hero emerges, the hero emerges, and like the robot sprouts wings and then like flies away.
That's why, yeah.
It's just like, oh, I thought this was about ping pong. Yeah,
it's a very bold way to open it, but and again, it just shows that the writers and the directors of this anime, they knew this wasn't really about the sport itself. It was about this journey, and that's one of the mysteries. Is like, what the hell's up with this hero thing? Who's this shadowy character? But the other interesting thing is we talk a lot about the development and the arcs of these characters and whatnot. Is that these characters, when you first meet them, you don't like them, right? Right, Kobe?
Oh yeah, they're totally unlikable. When the very first scene of Smile is basically him being kind of rude and standoffish to his other ping pong team members, and then the next scene is Peiko playing this kid, and he's just being arrogant and he's being cocky. But that's like a testament to the show, that like you can begin with two just like really unlikable characters. Even Kong is like kind of unlikable, because he kind of seems like the villain, at least in that first episode. So all three of the main characters you meet in the first episode aren't likable, but at least you're curious to see where their journey is going to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's gripping. It's unique. It's something
you don't see a lot of, at least animes like that. A lot of shows kind of devote the time to making you like their protagonist like right away. But really,
exactly.
what's great about the show is that you like these characters because of their flaws, which is kind of great, because you kind of want to see them grow and you kind of want to see them learn. The show is smart enough to realize that like Peiko starting the series as like this really cocky arrogance, thinking he's the best individual, is like that's not going to last long. So they have him lose in the very first episode, which is eye opening for him, and like begins his journey.
Yeah, and what happens when he loses is he cries. He cries like a baby. So he's got a lot of work to do. He fucking cried over a ping pong match. So yeah, it just tells you how kind of spoiled and.
But it's what's really cool to me. It's like, I think when I was first watching the show, I didn't think Peiko's journey. I didn't think he was the main character that we were going to be really following. I didn't think, because at the end, he's definitely, he's one of the top two main characters between him and Smile. But I would say between episodes like 2, 3, and 4, he kind of like fades back into the background more to like let Smile kind of like charge up as he goes off and does his own thing. I really thought Peiko was going to disappear, like just for a while. I think when I first was watching it, that he was not going to be the main character that he turned out to be at the end.
Yeah, and that's the other interesting thing about this, is that they're really good at balancing the two main characters, and they do it in a way that makes sense because you have Smile and you have Peiko, and their journeys are sort of parallel. You have Smile, who he's reluctant. First of all, one of his defining traits in the beginning is that to him, ping pong is it's kind of stale, kind of boring. Like it doesn't seem like he enjoys it or revels in it as much as I guess Peiko does.
As Peiko, right? Because basically it boils down to Peiko has they both have talent. These are both talented ping pong players, but Peiko has talent but no work ethic, and Smile has talent but no drive, like to be really good at ping pong.
Yeah, and so when Smile continues his journey, he sort of starts off as just a good ping pong player, but then he owns more of his position as becoming this ace ping pong player in the team because he goes under the wing of the coach. And we should talk about the relationship between the coach and Smile. And Peiko, on the other hand, after he loses not just with this game, but he loses another game to the character Sakuma, who he always used to be better than. But when he loses to Sakuma, he kind of gives up the sport for a while. Yeah. And that kind of allows Smile to sort of develop and shine through, and we learn more about Smile. But then it gets balanced out at the end when Peiko gets his own training sessions and stuff like that. So it's sort of like first half, I guess you could say first half of the series is about Smile, and then the second half of the series is about Peiko and his redemption, basically.
Yeah, I would say definitely. I haven't really thought of it that way, but that's a good point. I think you're definitely on something there.
Yeah. And of course, in between all these developments between the two main characters, they're also balancing the developments between Kong and Kazuma, Sakuma.
They're on their own separate journeys, but all kind of leading to eventually the same thing, which is realizing, I guess, the overall truth about ping pong is that you got to have fun with it, in a sense. I think that's what all of them are kind of missing. Peiko kind of forgot to have fun with it, but to really push himself. Smile doesn't have fun with it at all. Kong doesn't have fun with ping pong, and I think that's Kong's whole arc, is that he realizes that ping pong maybe just isn't for him, like in a sense.
Kong or Kazuma?
Kong to me, but even though like I think that like because he's not passionate about ping pong. He doesn't have the flames of it more because ping pong isn't about ping pong for him. Ping pong is just a ticket home. He would have felt the same way about anything if it was like, to me, if it was like, if he had to come home and he had to become Japan's top chef, like in order to return home, he would become like an expert cook. He's like, why am I cursed to be around these horrible people? I mean,
well, that's kind of funny because what if he was kicked out of his country and it had nothing to do with ping pong? Okay, so in our last conversation, I made this joke where what if Kong actually was a murderer, like a serial murderer, and they're just like, you're gonna have to, if you want to get back here, you're gonna have to get really freaking good at ping pong because
ping pong's really hard to be good at. So they're just like, God, he'll never do it.
Yeah, and I mean also China loves ping pong, so to them maybe it's like, we can't just execute our criminals. Well, we should get some use out of them. Turn them into expert ping pong players if they want to come back, and then we'll use them. Yeah, into warriors.
Crazy people becoming ping pong players? I'd watch that movie. It's like the government's like training them to be like their super secret elite Chinese ping pong team.
What if it's like Suicide Squad, but with ping pong?
What are we, some kind of ping pong squad? This is Kong. He has my back. I recommend not being beaten by him. You ever see Suicide Squad?
I never watched it.
Oh, you're missing out. That was a really dumb line. That was about... Doesn't matter. Dumb line. Dumb movie. Ping pong is better. But Kong should join the Suicide Squad ping pong version.
Yeah. So let's talk about Kong for a little bit. Because at the end, in the epilogue, we learn that he actually becomes a citizen. Kong becomes a citizen of Japan. And he gets like a ticket to the Olympics or something for being a good ping pong player. So what I looked up was that it takes 5 years to be a citizen in Japan, and then in the show it says 5 years after naturalization, meaning 5 years after that, after becoming a citizen, which means it's 10 years in the future, which means Kong has been playing ping pong for at least 10 years. You think he doesn't like ping pong? I mean, he's gotta like it some.
Right? I guess maybe.
Unless again, then so what if he was just so because you said it was more like his ticket home, right? What if he was so shitty at ping pong, he was just the worst ping pong player. It took him 10 years to ever
Take
get
a
a
while.
chance to get home. So he's just been
Yeah, what's he
he's
do with
been
his
in
life?
yeah, he's been in Shit's Creek for
Si-
a long time.
But if we're just like looking at Kong's arc itself, that's just what I always saw his arc as. It's like if we trace it in bare minimum his arc throughout the series, he starts off as you learn straight away that he was exiled from China and he has to win in order to get back home. Throughout the next few episodes, you learn that Kong is just a total mama's boy and he misses home so badly. And he wins a few matches and he loses the ultimate match against Kazuma the Dragon, which makes him think like, oh, now I'm kind of stuck here, which then he starts teaching his teammates, the ones that he kind of looked down upon for being so different, like because he was sent from China to Japan to join this ping pong team, to this group of people. And what in the middle chunk of the episodes, he slowly starts to teach them more. He becomes actually a good teacher to these kids himself, and he finds the home that he was missing back in Japan. So that's why, to me, a perfect ending to Kong's story would have been if he just gave up ping pong. Now that I think about it, maybe when I said it's like maybe he doesn't love ping pong, I guess the show doesn't support that. But I think personally, the show would have been stronger if it ended with Kong giving up ping pong. I would have changed that whole epilogue. I would have changed absolutely everything about that. In different ways. If to go into it in a sense, yeah, I wouldn't have Kong have said that he's still playing and then he finally gets his ticket home and he gets his. No, I would have said he would have given it up and he would have focused more on teaching, and he would have found his true passion, and then he would have found his home that that he was missing back in China, and that he didn't need ping pong for that. That's how I would have changed it.
That's a pretty interesting take. That is definitely his arc in the show, is that he's a good ping pong player for sure. But his arc is mostly like he hates being in Japan. He treats everyone with contempt, and then in a match between him and Skimoto actually beats him. And I think that kind of humbles him in a way, because that was during the match between them, that was supposed to be his match to make it to the Nationals, and it's supposed to be his ticket home. But then when that goes away, he has to stay in Japan for like another year. And in his year, he kind of takes up his responsibility, because he was sent to Japan, to that Japanese team, to sort of boost them and to kind of teach them his way of ping pong, because he was like super good compared to his team.
Oh yeah,
he takes leadership of his team and starts teaching them.
Yeah, he's definitely up there.
And so and you're right, he becomes more of a mentor. And again, he loses in sort of the final few episodes to Peiko, who he beat in the first episode. And then it's indicative of like his growth, because at that point he says to his coach, like, I don't want to skulk around. My team needs me. He instead of just thinking about himself, he starts thinking about his team, which I think, okay, so that's partly why he's my actually that's pretty much why he's my favorite character. I think it's just because I like his development the most, because from all the other characters, their development was sort of personal and kind of focused on themselves, whereas for him, his development was more interpersonal. He started out as sort of a cocky, selfish ping pong player, and he became a very good mentor figure for the rest of his team. So that's what I like about it. That's why I think his arc is the best. And also he has the best music, and we'll talk about the music later on. Kong is pretty cool, I will admit it. He is. I like him. I do like him a lot. He has some of the best individual scenes. I mean, like, even though he's kind of like a mama's boy, but the scene when he just like breaks down and cries in the on the train because he finds his mom's hair, like just like in it, and like reminds him of home, is just so sad. It's just, and to me, that's why I think personally that's just like that's why I thought the show was going, that ping pong wasn't going to be that important to him, because what's important to him is finding a home, and he eventually finds that, but then he does go on to play ping pong. So that's why I would change that epilogue. And that's another part of his motivation, I think, too. I think that's why I like his character, is because the motivation for all the characters is different. But I think his is the one that I can sympathize with the most, because he, like you said, ping pong is basically his ticket home, and it's his ticket home not just to his country, more specifically, it's a ticket home to his mom, because he's a big mama's boy, and there's a really cool scene in there. Well, there's a bunch of flashbacks of him thinking about how like his mom sends him snacks and stuff, and And then there's a scene where like his mom actually visits him, and then he makes like food, like some good old fashioned Chinese food with the rest of his team. I thought that was just a cool moment. Like there's not a lot of team focus on this in this anime. It's mostly like a individual character arc, but that's why I like his what his character brought to the show was a sort of sneak peek into what could have been a different anime, which is about teamwork and stuff like that, or
which is everything that you feel kind of about Kong, about being, you know, his motivations. Like I kind of feel the same way for Kazuma. I think to me, Kazuma might be my favorite character, to be honest, because I love his arc throughout the series. Because if we trace his arc, he starts the series as just this. He's called the Dragon in Ping Pong because Kazuma is this teenager who looks like he's like 55 years old.
He's a beast.
Yeah, he is a beast. He looks like to me like the big bad of the series because he cannot be beaten in ping pong. He's both huge and he's athletic and he absolutely dominates every single match that he's played. And it's because of his mindset, it's because of his thinking. Because you learn throughout the first few episodes that Kazuma thinks of ping pong as more of a responsibility more than anything else. Like he needs to win. He needs to do this because he thinks that's what's needed of him to be successful in his life. Because as you learn throughout his flashbacks and his story, it seems like his dad was a failure. He had a failing flower business, I believe. Is that what Cosmos their parents had?
Yeah,
or he was just a salesman.
Yeah, his dad owned a flower shop.
Yeah, his dad owned a flower shop, and it was a failing flower shop. And his dad was kind of called out for being kind of like a weak businessman and a poor businessman. And then
did he kill himself? I think they imply that he like killed himself too.
It does. It looks like because Cosmo has visions of like his dad being sad, and they go up to like this mountain top, and Cosmo's dad starts talking about the birds, and then he says a line that makes it look like he really was about to jump off, and then you hear young Cosmo going, "Dad, no," which is just a really messed up thing to do. If you're gonna commit, suicide like that, don't do it in front of your kid. Don't do it at all. Is the message.
That's real fucked up. Yeah. Don't kill yourself, people.
But I love that's the message of everything. Yeah. I loved its side about Cosmo. There's a really cool line that I noticed while watching through, knowing that his father owned a flower shop, and you find that out at the very end. It's in one of the first times you see Cosmo, he's in the bathtub soaking, and his girlfriend brings flowers, and Cosmo like immediately calls out what type of flowers they are. And it's just like a small little character detail, but it's like one that's like could easily be a throwaway. It's like, oh, nice tulips, or like those are tulips, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's great because then you learn later on his father owned a flower shop, so it just like works perfectly. So that's another aspect of why you should watch this show more than once, because you go back and you see things. But definitely, Cosmo's arc, I think to me is the strongest, just because he goes from just being such like weighted down by ping pong, by like the burden to win because his father was such a failure and he's really good at ping pong, so he just needs to be the best in everything that he does. Like there's a really cool Rocky 4-esque training montage where he's like has like a breathing mask on and he's like fighting two machines like shirtless, like he's on a treadmill playing ping pong against two machines that are like throwing.
Is that real? Like, do you think people actually do that? That's intense.
That is crazy if anyone did that, especially since Cosmo's supposed to be like 17 years old. Bullshit.
Yeah, no, he's an adult. He got held back.
So he's so dedicated to winning, and like his arc as he grows into it, he finds that he doesn't have to be burdened by ping pong. He can have fun with ping pong. He remembers in his final kind of push toward like enlightenment, he remembers how much fun he had when he first picked up the ping pong paddle with his dad and how much fun he had.
Yeah.
And him kind of realizing that is what inspires him.
Very satisfying.
Because really all these both, and if we think about it, both Kong and Cosmo, they're both inspired by this really, and Smile at the end, they're all inspired by the same person. They're all inspired by the hero. They're inspired by who turns out in the story to be Peiko. Peiko is the hero of the story who kind of like inspires all these people by being the hero in general. So I'm kind of curious on what your thoughts about like the hero. What do you think the purpose of the hero of the story is? Like, what does the hero do to these characters?
Okay, so like you said, so Peiko's the hero, and Peiko is the hero to Cosmo the same way that Peiko is the hero to Skimoto. And I think this is indicative in the final episode because all throughout the series, you sort of have these brief flashbacks to a time when Smile and Skimoto, oh fuck, those are the same character. To a time when Smile and Peiko were kids, and when they were first learning how to play ping pong, and back when they were first learning how to play ping pong, Smile actually picked up his nickname from that time period, and his name isn't Smile because he never smiles. It's not like a sort of, I guess, satirical nickname. It's because whenever they played ping pong, he wouldn't stop smiling. Like, he had the biggest smile whenever he played ping pong, and I think Peiko's a hero to him because he introduced him to a sport where he kind of come out of his shell and show some emotion and have fun. I think that's kind of the thing. Is Skimoto had this sort of he has kind of a sad history. So people make fun of him because he doesn't show any emotion. His parents are divorced, and it doesn't seem like he has many friends. But Peiko stands up for him at school, and he shows him this awesome sport that they can just have fun with, and it becomes an outlet for Skimoto. It's just a cool thing that he can do to hang out with Skimoto, and it turns out he's good at it, and that's what brings him the greatest joy. Now, Peiko can do that. The reason Peiko has had such a huge effect on Skimoto in doing that is because he's sort of a shining beacon as to what you can be and what you can become when you're playing ping pong. Because when Peiko plays, he kind of brings his whole heart into it, and he's like really passionate, and he's just smiling and having fun, and he's like cracking jokes, and he's really intense. And I think he does that to Kazuma, because Kazuma, like you said, he's weighted down. He doesn't really show any emotion either, much like Skimoto. He's sort of the most emotion he shows is rage, basically. Which I guess coincidentally, I think the most emotion that Skimoto shows is also rage.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Kazuma is sort of weighted down, and he's burdened by the sport that he sort of forgot to love and have fun with. And Peiko just shows him that again. I think that's the hero. The hero saves people. He saves people from, and in this case, Peiko saves Kazuma and Skimoto from themselves by showing them this awesome sport that you can just kind of go all out in and have a blast. I think that's what the hero does in this show.
That's what I think so too. I'm just throwing out, just trying to make connections where there probably is no connection at all. But I'm just thinking of it at this moment is that the chant at the beginning is say it 3 times, and then the hero will fully emerge. The hero emerges. The hero emerges. The hero emerges.
The hero appears.
The hero appears. Sorry. The hero appears. The hero appears. The hero appears. What's kind of interesting is that at the end he has to face 3 bad guys to where the hero has to appear. He has to face Kong, he has to face Kazuma, and then he has to face Smile. And then after those, then the hero really does appear, because after he faces them, that's when Peiko can finally fulfill his dream of eventually becoming, an Olympic player, which is what he does.
Wow, that's awesome.
Does that sound? That sounds like it could be a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I was thinking of that.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be a thing. No, that makes total sense. Holy shit. If that's actually how they planned it out, like that's like holy crap, that's like super smart. Oh,
yeah, because he has 3 tries. Man. Oh man. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna say that's canon.
Nice job.
Thank you.
That's canon.
It's canon.
It's official.
Accepted.
That's it. Yeah. So since we were talking about Skimoto, I wanted to talk about his relationship with the coach, and I think Butterfly Joe. So Butterfly Joe becomes his mentor, and there's a confusing thing in this show, where basically in the second episode, the coach realizes that Smile is this prodigy. Essentially, he's like this really good player, but he's not playing to his full potential. So the coach decides to basically take him under his wing, and in the final act of the episode, they have this ping pong match where if Smile wins, because the whole episode the coach is basically pestering him and making weird sexual innuendo jokes about
making him lunch and writing him love letters, just like train with me, and Smile's like, nah.
Exactly. So yeah, he's pestering him the whole time, and in the end they have a ping pong match. Now Smile wins, then he can basically walk away and the coach won't bug him anymore. But if the coach wins, then that means that he gets to, like, Smile becomes his dog. I think that's what they actually say in the show.
Yeah.
And so he basically he's forced to work under Butterfly Joe. Now,
so it's a big epic match.
Yes, it's a big epic match. There's some I'm all over the place, but in this match also, Smile turns into a robot. And that's the thing. You want to talk about the ping pong matches in this, how they can get kind of crazy?
Yeah, they do, because like it's not, when you animate a ping pong match, there's a lot of things I don't think you would find interesting, because there's only so much you can do. But what ping pong does, which I think is so great, is that it really goes just crazy with like its, I don't know, metaphors. I don't know if that's the proper word for it. It's
Symbolism.
It's symbolism for that, because the thing is that Smile is essentially a robot, is what all these characters call him. And then once he finally accepts it in his match with the coach. And the fact that just be a robot, turn everything off and become a robot. And like the animation has him shift and transform into like this really badass robot in like this really cool sequence to play the game. It's really off-putting and odd when you first watch the series, but it like fits, and the more, you kind of accept it and go on. But it really shows how this anime keeps the ping pong match kind of like energetic, kind of fun, kind of interesting, kind of visually stimulating, I guess. So it's really cool.
Yes.
So in the second match, he really does become the robot and kind of forgoes most of his emotion, and then just kind of, what does he do to the coach?
Yeah, he completely demolishes him, and then I think you mentioned this the other time we were talking about this. He like kills him basically.
Yeah,
right?
to the point where he basically kills him. Like the match ends, and it's like Butterfly Joe, who's the coach, is like this old man, and then like one Smile just starts annihilating him. He starts like remembering the good old days, and all of a sudden he goes for the ball, and there's like white light around him. He goes, oh, and then he like falls over,
Yeah.
and then like Smile walks away, and some of the other players are like, he doesn't look like he's moving. It's like, oh yeah, he hit his head at a really odd angle, and then the episode ends like he died like that. Like it's horrible. But then of course he's not dead.
Anyways, the point of that was the ping pong matches are visually interesting. They could have just animated it to where it's two dudes playing regular ping pong, but no, they have these weird animations where like, yeah, Smile turns into a robot, or Cosma, when he hits the ball, it turns into a dragon. It's crazy shit. You should just watch the anime. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Just watch the anime. And talking about, his kind of relationship with Butterfly Joe is just like kind of got me thinking that really like an undercurrent theme of this show is all it really is about family in one way or another. Is now that I think about it, because at first it's easy to think of just Kong's story as the one with the family overtones, basically, right? Because he's the one who desperately wants to get home to his mom. But upon watching it this third time with you, I caught something I didn't catch before, which we've talked about before, which is Smile's relationship with Butterfly Joe being like this surrogate father and son, like back and forth.
So see, the original point. So before we went on that tangent with the weird animations that happen during the ping pong matches, so Smile wins that match, which means that he could basically walk away and the coach won't have to pester him anymore. However, in the next episode, we see that Smile actually didn't do that. He actually became the protege to Butterfly Joe. And so I've watched this like 4 or 5 times now, and I didn't really understand the reason why. I just kind of accepted it. But I think you cracked the code. I think you figured out why he decides to actually go under this coach.
Right.
Why? What is the reason?
Because I thought that too. Yes, because the reason is that the first few times that I watched the series, I didn't catch it, but like the third time that I watched it, it's because Smile really does see Butterfly Joe as like a surrogate father in a way. There's something I didn't catch in the show is that Smile's alone. Smile doesn't have any family. There's a scene in the middle montage where it's Christmas time and his mom's working, and so he's just sitting by himself eating a cake that turns out that Butterfly Joe got him. That he really kind of develops this bond to his coach in a way that I didn't catch the first few times, and he latches on and he starts doing what this coach says because he thinks of him as like his kind of surrogate dad. He was going to quit basically, and because he won the match, but then he goes and visits the coach's home in like a really random scene in the next episode where he meets the coach's wife, and then Smile runs away. But I think that is like the beginning of the connection that Smile, the reason why Smile, I said this in a really poor roundabout way, that the reason why Smile starts caring and listening to the coach is because he sees him as like a surrogate father.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think that really fits the reason as to why he decides to work for him, and it also fits the theme of the show. Like you just mentioned, it is about family. Kong is doing it for his mom, and Cosma, the reason he's like really into ping pong is because of his dad and because of the family pressure put on him.
Yeah,
and
I
think for
Peiko, I don't know if it's played as a. Yeah, I was saying because there's a scene in the later episodes where he's training and his whole family comes and supports him, And there's kind of like a throwaway joke
Right.
that like Peiko all has his family all has the same face as Peiko. And they're all like, so does his mom, and
Right.
so does like his 8 or like brothers or so. So like if we're trying to fit that into the mold of family, like I think you could really paint it as Peiko wants to stand out from his family. That's why he wants to be the best, because he grows up in a household where everybody's the same. Everybody looks alike. So he needs to do what he wants to do in order to stand apart. And it just goes back to his family. Even Sakuma in a way, because he left their initial, because Sakuma's the character we haven't talked about a whole lot. He's the character who begins going to the same school as Peiko and Smile, and then eventually, but he's not very good at ping pong. He's just Professor Ping Pong, I believe, because he more analyzes it, and he eventually branches out and goes to Kaio Academy, which in itself is its own type of family. So he's leaving this stuff to be part of something, greater, which I think if you're trying to stretch that into the family terms, I think that fits.
Yeah, and even beyond that, I mean, Sakuma's arc basically ends up with him in a family. Like, he starts a family. He has like this girlfriend, which has the most annoying voice in the world, by the way.
Yeah, she does.
And yeah, he ends up having babies with her. And yeah, he starts his own little family, and I guess he becomes happy. He becomes a trucker. That's his epilogue. He's going to school to become a truck driver. Yeah, so that's really interesting. That's another thing we just discovered in this. That's another thing we discovered in this. Or at least I discovered in this conversation, is that it is very family oriented. This show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I was gonna say something, but I completely forgot what it was. Oh right. Back to Skimoto and Butterfly Joe kind of having a father-son relationship. That also explains why in the epilogue, there's this weird small scene where Butterfly Joe is like making a big fuss over getting like this pot, like this cooking pot or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's all like, "Yeah, I need to get this pot because he says a name, but basically it's Skimoto. He's saying, yeah, he wants to get ready and prepared because like basically he's coming over for dinner, and like it seems like he's just sort of like that.
Yeah.
That was his whole day. Do you remember that? Yeah, so like
I do remember that now. That scene
always
always stood out. Yeah, but he's excited.
Yeah,
it's because he wants,
and
it's because it's his family.
He wants to see his son. Yeah. And here's the thing. Here's a significant part to that. The reason I can't remember the name is because I'm pretty sure he uses his first name. Because this whole time we've been using Skimoto and Smile. Yeah. So I think in Japan that's like a big deal because like you usually call people by their last name, but like people you actually know and like are on a very good personal relationship basis with them, you call them by their first name.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that I just thought of that. So there you go. More family oriented.
More family.
Right
so
there.
yeah, okay, that's cool. So the first overcurrent of this theme is more of this series is more, the hero emerges, finding something that inspires you, finding fun in what you do. And there's an undercurrent of family, which is something that I didn't catch really all full until this conversation, basically, right here.
I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm glad we screwed up so many times.
That's why I screwed up. I screwed up on purpose because I wanted us to get here.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know what would be really awesome is if we screwed it up one more time and then see what happens afterwards.
And so we're just going to keep being smarter about ping pong.
Can we come up with next time?
God, that's true.
Basically the whole podcast is just this us talking about just this one anime.
Just ping pong over and over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
That wouldn't be too bad, actually.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind talking about ping pong because ping pong is a good anime. I can talk about some of the flaws that I've had with the show of just overall, but overall, this is one of the best animes I've ever seen. It's so heartfelt. It tugs at the heartstrings, and it's so different than any other anime that you'll probably watch in quite some time. Because you know more about the style of animation. How would you explain the animation style?
It is buttfuck ugly.
Yeah,
nah, for real though. It's when you first watch it, especially when you've seen lots of other animes, or at least even a few anime, you know that there is a certain aesthetic that they all adhere to. Like an anime when you see it, but when you watch this, it's a completely different animation. And I've known people that even by the end of it, they don't get used to it. They still think it looks weird. But I personally think it's actually very unique. It's a very unique style. It's a style that adheres to the original manga, which was released in the 90s, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it adheres to the style so much that they even use the manga panels. So whenever there's a very dynamic scene, they'll sort of cut it by actually drawing out the panels as if you're sort of panning through a manga page. And so you'll have like a really intense ping pong match, and then let's say when Smile hits the ball, there'll be like a panel where he's just like boom, like really forcefully hitting the ball, and then you'll see like just that one panel, and really drives home the impact of it. And it's fun to watch, actually. Yeah, so I think that's about all we can really say about this anime. I mean, very briefly, the animation's unique, the soundtrack's awesome, but in terms of like the themes and the story and the characters, it's just quality just from that perspective alone. So
everything is top notch. It's great when you watch a show where all those like individual elements, the characters, you know, the theme, the story, the music, the animation style itself, even things when it boils down to scene transitions, is just everything about this anime is top notch. If you haven't seen this anime, definitely watch it. It's even if you somehow listened to all of this anime and you haven't, all this podcast and you haven't watched it, just please go back and watch it, because I think this is an anime definitely everyone should watch.
Yes. So yeah, it's awesome. I give it 5 out of 5. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
plus.
It's definitely an A+ anime.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that just about wraps it up. That was good. We did it, Kobe.
We did
nice
it.
Job.
We finally did
it. We did it.
Yeah. So yeah, this was the premiere podcast for Nerd Blaze. For Nerd Blaze, the Nerd Blaze. For Nerd Blaze. That's what we are.
Yeah, one of those. Gee, we're real bad at this.
We'll learn. It's our first one. But yeah, so this is our kind of our introductory podcast to it. We're going to continue forward and, you know, review other sports animes and just talk about them in ways. They probably won't be as good as Ping Pong. So join us next time. We'll be talking about the ice skating sports anime, Yuri on Ice.
Ice skating. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about that one. That's another really, really interesting one to talk about. And yeah, so if you wanna follow us, check out what we're up to. We've got a YouTube channel. It's called The Nerd Blaze. We're on Facebook and Twitter as well. Just search up The Nerd Blaze. I'm sure we're on there. And yeah, thanks a lot for listening.
Thanks all. I'm Jacoby.
And I'm Jeff. See ya.
See ya.